What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the NOBULL canvas lifter. So these are the newest shoe from NOBULL. They came out maybe about 2 months ago. I bought them like right when they came out. I've been testing them since, and I gotta be honest with you, these are a lot better than I initially expected them to be. Now, NOBULL hasn't released a new colorway for their normal flagship lifter in quite some time, and if you're asking me, I feel like these actually might be a beta test or the blueprint for a new upcoming flagship lifting shoe from them. So the canvas lifter is what I would consider to be a hybrid lifting shoe, something that the manufacturer intended to be used for both your lifting movements such as ollie, squats, and also the occasional WOD or Metcon. So this has all of the makings of a typical quote unquote hybrid lifter. It's got a more flexible toe box. The heel is made out of EVA foam versus like TPU or wood. And it's just a little bit lighter than your standard weightlifting shoe would typically be. So when we look at the construction of this shoe, it's a really almost simplistic shoe, and that much I actually kind of like about it. There's really not a whole lot going on, but it all kind of just works. So the upper is a canvas material, very similar to the ones that they're using on their typical just canvas trainer. So it is a little bit more flexible than your standard synthetic leather materials and more breathable than something like leather would be. So there's really not a whole lot going on in this shoe, which I actually kind of like because it reminds me of like old school weightlifting shoes. There's a single strap design that has the newer style hook and loop, goes through a metal buckle, and then that straps on over through the medial side. And then the lacing on this is just kind of like your standard laces. There's really nothing going on. There's no webbing or anything, but it provides a good enough fit. The tongue is like a double-sided canvas, and it stays in place well enough, but it kind of feels a little bit on the cheap side. It just doesn't feel, I feel like it needs something inside of it to give it a little bit more substance. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with it. The ankle collar is a little bit thin, so some people are gonna like that. I personally don't like that because I do feel like the fit around the ankle is a little bit loose for me, even when I tighten the shoe up. You have a heel pull tab right here. There is an embedded heel counter. It's in there, you can't really see it. You have, of course, the NOBULL logo right here, which kind of blends in and isn't as gaudy as some of the other NOBULL logos on the sides of their shoe. And let's see, the star of the show here is the wider toe box. So this, unlike their standard lifter, has a pretty open and spacious toe box. That's something that everybody wants now. And I think that it has an ample amount of space. So the heel on this shoe is a EVA foam heel. But unlike other EVA foam heels, this is like, it's really dense. It almost feels like plastic. Like I can't even depress the edges, which I can typically do on something like the Powerlift trainers from Adidas, which also has a foam heel. This heel is extremely dense. It does not feel soft or like it's going to compress at all. Under the bottom of the shoe, you have high abrasion rubber with a herringbone tread pattern. And I actually feel like this rubber that they're using is very good. It grips my platform, which has terrible grip, very, very well. So while it may not look too crazy, it actually does a really good job. The heel height on this shoe is 17.5 millimeters. So I think that was a 10.5 millimeter stack height in the front and a 29 millimeter stack height in the rear of the shoe. So this has a little bit under a 0.7 inch heel, and that's another thing that most hybrid lifters have. They typically have a slightly shorter heel. Some people are gonna like that. Some people actually gravitate that for like low bar back squats where they don't really want a huge heel, but they want the stiffness of a heel. So some people are gonna like that about this shoe. Another reason why you would want that is because it's a little bit less obtrusive when you're doing things like double unders and box jumps, or you're using this for a Metcon, which is a whole nother story. But if that's what you wanted to use it for, it's a little bit easier to use than something with a 1-inch heel. And continuing the trend of that hybrid lifter theme, these are slightly lighter than your typical Oli shoe. I weighed a size 10.5 men's at 15.8 ounces or 445 grams. So the reason why I think most people are going to be looking at the NOBULL canvas lifter is because of the advertised wide anatomical toe box. They actually say on the website that this is the same toe box shape that is found on their standard NOBULL trainer. I feel like this is probably a little bit wider. It's a little bit more open feeling, but I never had a problem with the shape of the original trainer or the trainer plus's toe box. The court trainer actually has a slightly wider toe box, which I actually prefer. And in this case, this of all of the shoes that I own from NOBULL has probably the widest toe box. I would still actually recommend sizing these like your standard NOBULL trainers though. I got them in a size 10.5. That's what I get my normal NOBULL trainers in. And my NOBULL Trainer Pluses are actually 10s at the moment, but if I were to buy another pair, I would probably go with the 10.5. The 10s still fit okay for me, but I think I would just size up just out of comfort reasons. This one is probably a little bit more similar to the way that the standard NOBULL trainer fits. If you're comparing that to Nike size, it would be the same exact thing for me, and compared to Reebok, it would be a half size up. Otherwise, the shoe fits fairly neutral. There's really no arch. The pitch on the shoe is very gradual. It feels really easy to deal with. And I think if you had like wider ankles, you would actually appreciate the fit around the ankle because it is a little bit more spacious. If you had skinny ankles like me, you might have issues dealing with a little bit of heel slip, but that's nothing that you can't really solve by just tightening these shoes up really tight. I will say that the just standard black laces that come with the shoe are far better than the camo ones that come with the shoe, which I found were a little bit slippery and hard to tie. These ones stay tied better. They're also a little bit longer, which makes it easier to tie them. If I were also NOBULL, I'd probably add in another eyelet at the top here so you could do like a runner's lock. But I mean, considering that these are supposed to be like a budget weightlifting shoe, I understand why they don't have something like that. All right, so this is something I forgot to talk about when I first made this video, but I thought I would circle back around to it because I know it's gonna be a very important question that people are gonna be asking me. And that is whether or not the NOBULL lifters have a wider toe box than the Tier L1s. So I'll put them side to side and I'll show them to you. And right away, you're gonna notice that the Tiers have more of a rounded front, but when you have these shoes on side to side, and these are both 10.5s, I do feel like the NOBULLs have a wider toe box. There's more room in there for my toes to move around, especially at the metatarsals, whereas the Tiers also kind of have a more flat toe box in comparison to a more tall toe box that the NOBULLs have. So it just feels like the toe box in the NOBULLs is just, it's a little bit more open, it's a little bit more airy, there's more room for your toes to kind of move around, and whether or not you're gonna like that is really just kind of up to you. The Tiers have plenty of width, but the toe box feels a little bit flatter, though I don't think that that is generally a problem. It just might feel a little bit more closed off, and especially if you got like really thick, wide feet, that might be an issue for you. So in that case, I would say you might want to check out the NOBULLs over the Tiers. I think for me personally, the NOBULLs have a wider toe box than the Tiers do. So flexibility is one of those things that I don't like to spend a whole lot of time with when talking about lifting shoes. But since this is a hybrid lifter, I guess we can comment about it. So this shoe does have a more flexible toe box. With something like the Nike Romaleo 4s or the Legacy 3s, this would be a whole lot harder to do. The toe box on this is much more flexible than you would find on a standard weightlifting shoe. And there is actually somewhat of a toe spring angle, which is not my favorite thing, but if you're looking to buy a weightlifting shoe that you could also do Metcons in, that toe box flex is something that you're gonna really want, and that toe spring angle is gonna help you out for your jumping movements if you plan to use these for double unders or box jumps or burpees. This is not a shoe that, I mean, I would even remotely think about doing a run in, but I mean, if it's like 100 meters at a time, they would do okay, but it's not something that I would recommend. I would just stick to in the box stuff, burpees, double unders, box jumps, and I think that these would do just fine. When it came to stability, these actually exceeded my expectations. I did not expect them to be as dense of a shoe, or the heel to be as dense as they actually are. There is really no compressing this heel. Like, I've tried to step on it from an angle, I've tried to like depress it just putting weight down on it. The edges are incompressible. This heel is very, very stiff. So the only issues with stability that you might find with this shoe are if you just get pitched forward, which is also kind of a problem because of that toe spring angle. That's not actually something that I ran into for the majority of stuff that I did. For clean and jerks, I actually thought that these were a very stable shoe. The grip is excellent. I thought responsiveness was very good. The heel height for me is perfect because I actually have pretty good ankle mobility, so I don't actually need a tall heel. And I think that the pitch of this shoe feels really easy to work with when you're doing your lifting movements. The only issue that I ever ran into was getting pitched forward when I was doing squat snatches with this shoe. That's when I really noticed that toe spring angle. It was not something that would deter me from ever using these shoes for a snatch workout, but it's something that you have to be a little bit more aware of so that you can kind of account for when you're landing your lift. Even though that's not really another thing you want to be focusing on when you're doing your snatches. But if you're just looking for a hard-soled shoe to just squat in, I thought slow lifts and just normal squatting in the shoe was excellent. I never had an issue with the shoes pitching me forward. It was easy to get very grounded. Laterally, the shoe is very stable because it's got a very flat contact area. Besides that toe spring angle, which is not really something you have to worry about when you're just squatting. But otherwise, I thought that these were a very shoe. And once again, the heel on this shoe is not compressible. This foam is like rock solid. So when it comes to value, these shoes retail at $150, which if you're comparing to other hybrid lifters is at the top end, because if you're looking at Savaleos, they retail typically at $120, and then you can get them on sale all the way down to like $65. The other competition that you have is the Adidas Powerlifts, which I gotta be honest with you, are probably my least favorite out of the whole bunch. While they're still competent shoes, I just think that they are overshadowed by the Savaleos, if you can fit them, and now the NOBULL canvas lifters. So my only thing about this shoe is just the idea of a hybrid lifting shoe in the first place. Like, why do you need a weightlifting shoe that you can do a Metcon in? I feel like most of the training shoes that you can buy nowadays are plenty stable enough for the heavy weights that you'd find in a Metcon. And if you're going to max out, you're probably not doing a Metcon, and that's where you would just wear normal lifting shoes. The canvas lifters actually do a lot of things right, but there are just some things that I would change about it, like the toe spring angle. I think that needs to not be there. If you're doing a workout that has like double unders, burpees, or box jumps, you're gonna be able to deal with a shoe that has a flatter toe, given the amount of flexibility that's in the toe box already. And the other one is, I would probably just raise the heel height up, make it a full 3/4 inch heel, just so that it can be compared to just normal weightlifting shoes. I think a lot of people out there see something like this, and besides the fact that it's NOBULL, will write it off because it is a hybrid or a CrossFit lifting shoe, and they'll never take a look at it, even though it's actually pretty decent. But if you were actually somebody that was looking for a weightlifting shoe that you could do a WOD in, the NOBULL canvas lifters are probably the best ones out there. They're very comfortable, they're stable, and I mean, they do save you a little bit of money in comparison to buying a full flagship lifter But if you ask me, I would probably just save your money and just buy that full flagship lifter. But anyways, if you guys have any questions about the NOBULL canvas lifter, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.